Guys, what a day! An entire Chechen unit was annihilated with one attack on the territory of Russia. Then a very weird, odd and strange Russian base was destroyed in the south, and finally a huge assault attempt by Russians in the east was completely stopped by Ukrainians. And this is not even mentioning that the Russian freedom fighters now are advancing even deeper inside the territory of Russia. But more about all this in just a couple of minutes. What's up, investors? It's the Russian dude. And let's get straight to the point and talk about some ridiculous Russian propaganda. Well, not that much of an exhale today, but yeah, sorry for iPhone headphone users. But okay, today we're talking about Russian elections, which in itself can deserve the entire chapter of ridiculous Russian propaganda. First of all, we begin with this video of one of Battle Babushkas who is wearing all Putin merch. By the way, the Russian dude merch still available, go ahead, check link down below. So long story short, she is wearing all Putin's merch and she's saying, I am going to vote for Putin. Nobody else is gonna receive my vote. Putin is the only Tsar, king, lord who is going to rule over us. Putin is the only one who deserves to be elected. Putin is our one and only president. Yes, I'm doing the Battle Babushka expression. And well, once again, the Russian presidential elections once again deserve the entire topic of ridiculous Russian propaganda. Well, right here you can see some of the videos of a quote-unquote normal voting. First of all, we have a video of a Minister of Defense of Russia, Shoigu, and supposedly still alive Commander-in-Chief of Russian forces, Valery Gerasimov. They are voting for who is going to be the next president. I guess that's, for them, it's pretty obvious choice. Which, by the way, also made me think Valery Gerasimov was kinda missing, right? So did he resurrect just to vote for Putin? Or was this a video pre-recorded? Guys, let me know down below in the comments what do you think. Then we also have a video of the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia, Sergei Lavrov, voting, the ex-president of Russia, the biggest joker right now, Dmitry Medvedev, also voting. And then we have a video of Alexander Nevsky, one of Russia's oldest rulers, somehow also voting for Putin, I'm assuming. And then speaking about Putin, Putin himself voted for Putin presidential Putin elections in Russia, for the next president of Russia who is going to be Putin, and so Putin voted for Putin. And this is what something Russian propaganda presented on TV, that there was a huge order, everyone is voting, everyone is happy. But then we start receiving actual videos from real people. For example, a lot of poll stations reported that they were using so-called disappearing ink. So whenever you put some fire on it, the check marks disappear, so basically you can input your very own selections whenever you want later. But obviously, Russians themselves, they were kinda suspicious about these so-called, once again, elections. I mean, what's the point in voting? Putin is gonna win anyways. No, once again. But then the Russians themselves, they were expressing very big negativity towards these so-called presidential elections, and so they were trying to sabotage it as much as possible. For example, burning the election station polls, or maybe putting some chemicals inside these bins with already made choices. But the Russian propaganda found a perfect explanation why would they do it. They said there are only two possible choices. Option number one, it is because there was some voices inside their heads who are telling them to do this. And option number two is that there was Ukrainian security services who were also pretty much telling them to do it. And then Russian propaganda pretty much said, well, those two things are pretty much identical. And besides that, in some bordering regions and cities with Ukraine, as you already know, there are some combat activities between Russian freedom fighters and the conventional Z army. So some of the election process were disrupted because there were simply combat activities. So as you can pretty much see, the reality is often quite different from what Russian propaganda shows us on the screens, on the TV. Well, surprise, surprise. Wow. Sorry guys, I just cannot stop playing with my brand new extra wallet. The release mechanism is like so smooth and satisfying. It's like, you know, these like fidget toys that kids used to play to. It's just so incredible, so nice, so soft, I love it. And it is also so slim you can literally bring it anywhere. I mean, as you should. I mean, it's your wallet, right? After all. And if you do end up carrying it everywhere with you and just one time you accidentally lose it, just like pretty much I'm assuming at this point everyone did. I did personally lose my wallet once, not the greatest feeling in the world. Don't worry, Extra got you covered here as well. All you need to do is to simply put this sun power tracker inside your wallet, and if you end up losing it, unfortunately it will show you the exact location of it. And as soon as you get closer, you can even make it ring using the special app, which literally takes less than 5 seconds to set up for even easier discovery. Take a listen. Because, I mean, what would you prefer? Calling your bank, cancelling all your credit cards, then ordering new ones, or simply having this tracker inside your wallet? For me, the choice is pretty obvious. And here is the deal. I partnered with Extra to give you guys a special code DUDE, which you can apply during checkout and receive a limited time anniversary sale discount of up to 25%. You can go ahead and check my link down below to see a big variety of products Extra has to offer, which are made from premium materials, such as for example leather or a space-grade aluminum. And they even have RFID protection, so your credit card information cannot be stolen remotely. Yes, unfortunately, this is something what hackers learn to do. Just once again, please make sure to use my link down below and apply the code DUDE during checkout, DUDE, for this limited time 25% discount. Thanks so much Extra for sponsoring this video. Now back to the program. Now let's get serious and talk about update from the south of Ukraine, where an extremely weird base of Russians was destroyed. Then I'm gonna talk about the situation in the east, where a very big, massive, huge assault was prevented. And finally I will give you an update about the liberating activities by Russian separatists against Russian Z army. And so yes, first of all, as we go once again back to the south, next to Verbove, Ukrainians reportedly were able to destroy 3 armored vehicles of Russians. And then also from Zaporozhye front line we have this picture where Ukrainians are using British self-prepared artillery system called AS-90. And as you can see, somehow they managed to literally put down their own trenches, providing it just an extra layer of protection. But another pretty odd thing that happened in the south is that Ukrainians were able to find and destroy a pretty weird so-called floating base of Russians. First of all, they saw this satellite image with the ship, which is by the way called Mechanic Pagodin. They literally discovered it standing in Kinburn speed for a very long time, not moving, not floating, no nothing like this, and they were like, that's pretty strange. And upon further investigation they realized that this is a floating base of Russians which they were using as a drone command center, and a lot of drones were launched from there against Odessa, Mykolaiv and Kherson regions. And well, Ukrainians were like, well, it is literally in the middle of the open field, in the middle of the open water, it's not hidden anymore, we know that this is a base of Russians, so what's the logical conclusion? Obviously they destroyed it. The ball of fire was pretty extensive, pretty big, the destruction is total, and I do not think that this base can longer be used as Russians to continue their drone operations against Ukraine. Right, now let's switch our attention to the east, where Ukrainians were able to stop a big assault by Russians. But first, guys, I once again decided to go and check my analytics, and what do you think I saw? 46.9% of you still watching these videos not subscribed. Absolutely unacceptable. So yes, right now it is time for you. Cameron, Camilo, Carl, Carlos, Carson, Carter, Casey, Cash, Kaysen. Guys, time for you to subscribe. I'm going down the list in alphabetical order of the names, so if you also want to hear your very own name in the future, subscribe as well, and eventually I will call you by your own name. Guys, please subscribe once again. In all seriousness, this is a very good support for the channel. Like this video, subscribe to my Instagram, all the links are down below. Now let's continue. And so yes, speaking about the situation in the east, in this area all the way from Terny, Yimpolivka, Razdolivka and Bilohirivka, in the last 24 hours alone, Ukrainians were able to repel at least a total of 16 assault attempts by Russians. And then, as you go to the south of Bakhmut to already familiar to you guys Klishchiivka, this is where massive assault attempts by Russians were conducted in the last several days, and this was successfully stopped by Ukrainians. As you can see, Klishchiivka, according to this map, is still under full control by Ukrainians, and reportedly in one of such huge assaults that Russians attempted recently, they lost 16 out of 18 of their armored vehicles, which basically means that Ukrainians completely annihilated this military convoy, obliterated the offensive attempt, not letting Russians to do anything except losing even more armored vehicles and their infantry. To be honest, I personally think this is one of the most humiliating defeats of the Russian Z army, which not too many people talk about, which happened in the last several days. You can just judge it by yourself if you see the full video. The full uncensored version, as always guys, is on my Patreon, the link is down below. Thank you so much for checking it out. There is right now a 1 week of free trial. As you go more to the south to Avdiivka frontline, Ukrainians were able to destroy a Russian self-propelled artillery system in Vasilievka, located right here, and then in Avdiivka itself, right here, we have yet another Bradley footage presented to us by the Ukrainian soldiers fighting along these front lines. And this video is also truly impressive, because it combines the footage from the outside of the Bradley, it combines the footage of the drones flying above, and it also even includes the video from the inside of the Bradley, so you can see how this machine is being operated. And basically what is happening is that one single Bradley is able to destroy at least 2 Russian tanks and also prevent the entire assault attempt by Russians just once again with one single machine. As you can see, everything I just mentioned, what Russians lost in the east, which were not able to do in the east, pretty much means that Ukrainians were able to prevent one of the biggest assault attempts across the entire eastern front lines in the last several months. And yes, full version of this particular battle is also on my Patreon, the link is down below. But wait, there is more, even more significant events which were to disadvantage the Russian army happened recently in the last 24 hours. Specifically, to begin with, let's talk about Belgorod, where you already know that some election activities, quote-unquote, were disrupted because there is active combat operations between Russian freedom fighters and the conventional Z army. So as you can see from this video, the local residents reported some very loud noises. Then in Kaluga, located deep inside the territory of Russia, another huge oil refinery was destroyed, most likely by Ukrainian drone. Well, Russians, they tried to answer to these things. They launched 27 of their Shahid drones against the territory of Ukraine, but luckily all 27 of them were intercepted by Ukrainian air defense. But unfortunately, besides drones, they were also using ballistic missiles, which is just insane. Ukrainians are targeting military-related objects. They're not letting these scam elections and referendums to happen, which makes sense during war times. What Russians do in return? They use ballistic metallic cylinders against Odessa. The local residential area was partially destroyed. Unfortunately, there are casualties among civilians. And if you think about it, this was not debris of a metallic cylinder, this was the attack by metallic cylinder itself, which basically means that this attack against civilian construction, against just a regular apartment building where civilians lived, this attack was directly targeting this area, and there is simply no excuse for Russians to say otherwise. And then, unfortunately, something similar also happened in Vinnytsia. Ukrainians were able to intercept Russian Shahid drones flying above the city, but the debris fell down also on residential areas, causing massive destructions. And so just once again talking about what Ukrainian side is doing, and also the freedom fighters of the Russian Federation. They are doing war against the Putin's army, not the civilian population of Russia, as it should be. I mean, it makes sense. And right here, as you can see this video from the bordering regions with Ukraine, either Belgorod or Kursk, we can see that the convoy of military armored vehicles of the Russian volunteer corps is advancing deeper inside the territory of Russia, completely uninterrupted. There is not a single Russian other conventional army military vehicle is trying to stop them. They literally drive on the open road like it is just like nothing. So basically, as you can see, they are becoming quite unstoppable. Hopefully they can go as deep as all the way to Moscow as they promised several days ago. And speaking once again about doing war against the actual Putin's army and not the civilians. Reportedly, as you can see from this video, in Kozinka, in just one single attack, these Russian freedom fighters were able to eliminate the entire unit of Chechen fighters, which are basically Kadyrov soldiers, let's say so, kinda Chechen mercenaries fighting for Russia for money. And for the very first time since the border has been breached, Putin finally made a statement. He said that there will be a retaliation against those separatists which breached Kaluga, Kursk and Belgorod regions. And by the way, he never even called them separatists. He's still convinced that these are Ukrainian soldiers breaching the border. He never said this were Russians fighting against Russians, because according to him, Russia fully and unconditionally supports him. But unfortunately, as you might imagine, retaliation in his case will be attacking unprotected residential areas, because that's what was done by him pretty much since the beginning of this war back in February of 2022. And unfortunately, nothing has changed since then. And just to give you a perspective, on the other hand, those Russian freedom fighters, they did make a statement to the people of Russia living in those bordering cities. They said, guys, please evacuate as soon as possible. We will be fighting against the Russian conventional army, but this is war. Accidental casualties, they always happen, so please go north, as far north as possible. Like, we cannot guarantee your safety. So as you can see, even they asked the population of Russia to leave, unlike Putin whenever he went to Ukraine to liberate Ukrainians from Ukrainians. And there was not a single announcement, something like civilians please leave, we're gonna be liberating you. Nothing like this. Russian conventional Z army just started war, started bombing those Ukrainian cities like it was nothing, like nobody ever lived there. It just gives you a very perfect perspective, very perfect contrast between what the regime of Putin is doing and the Ukrainians defending their very own land. If you have not seen my previous video when I was talking about the Russian army already surrendering in Belgrade, it's gonna appear to my left side right here. Please subscribe to my channel for future updates about Russian-Ukrainian war. Thanks so much extra for sponsoring this video. Please go ahead and check the links down below. Also go ahead and check the Russian Dude merch, because some of the items will be discontinued, so you can purchase them before it's too late. Thanks so much, patrons, for your support, and see you on Tuesday.